There will be no single moment when the gates visibly slam shut. No law announced that says no more. Instead, the system will simply begin to fade, away from view, away from scrutiny, until decisions are made without hearings, denials issued without reasons, and those who seek refuge find only silence. When that day comes, will we even realize what we've lost? The expansion of artificial intelligence into the immigration system is often sold as a tool for efficiency, security, and fraud prevention. Government officials frame automation as a way to reduce human error, accelerate decision-making, and ensure fairness through objective, data-driven processes. This is a lie. AI is not neutral. It is an instrument of power. And in the hands of a hostile administration, it will become the perfect tool for invisible exclusion, bureaucratic cruelty, and mass rejection disguised as process. We are not speculating about the future. The United States is on the verge of an immigration crackdown unlike anything we've seen before, and AI will be at its center. Every element of the system, case processing, risk profiling, document verification, automated decision-making, and data surveillance, can be calibrated not to enhance fairness, but to maximize denials and eliminate avenues for appeal. The shift will be immediate and irreversible, locking migrants into a machine designed not to judge their cases, but to erase them before they can even be heard. This is not just policy. It is systemic warfare against the most vulnerable, executed through the cold precision of automation. Today we analyze how AI, deployed under an administration intent on mass exclusion, will function as an unaccountable gatekeeper, shutting people out while hiding behind the veneer of data-driven objectivity. We break down the 5 critical pressure points where AI can be weaponized, showing how human discretion is systematically eliminated, complexity is transformed into automatic rejection, and the burden of proof is pushed to impossible levels. The danger is not just that AI will make the system harsher. The danger is that it will make its cruelty invisible, removing the last human safeguards, shielding itself from legal challenge, and leaving applicants with no explanation, no recourse, and no chance. This is not some distant dystopian vision. It can happen now. And if it does, it will be nearly impossible to undo. AI-driven triage systems are often introduced to streamline case processing, but under a hostile system, streamlining can become a euphemism for mass rejection. Instead of helping officers identify deserving cases, these systems are tuned to detect and isolate complex applications, those with any irregularity, however minor. Missing a document, having an unusual travel history, or coming from a disfavored country triggers the system to flag the application as problematic. Once labeled complex, the case is shunted into a procedural limbo where human review is minimized, and delay becomes an unofficial denial. This creates a feedback loop. When small deviations like a missing form trigger exclusion and complexity itself is treated as proof of fraud. For those from war-torn or politically unstable regions, where obtaining perfect documentation is often impossible, the system becomes an insurmountable barrier. Complexity is no longer a reason for careful review. It becomes a reason to discard. The result is a system where efficiency means excluding the vulnerable, and the very people most in need of protection are those least able to navigate the machine. Predictive AI systems promise to identify high-risk applicants, but risk itself is a political construct. These systems are trained on past immigration enforcement data steeped in racial, religious, and national bias. An applicant's nationality, surname, or the language they speak can trigger heightened scrutiny. Each denial based on these proxies reinforces the algorithm's belief that similar applicants are risky. Bias compounds into a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is the pattern of reinforcement. Suspicion breeds rejection, and rejection breeds more suspicion. Under an administration that views non-white migrants as threats, AI risk tools don't correct bias, they automate and accelerate it. Officers, aware that denials from flagged groups are politically safe, begin aligning their decisions with AI outputs, entrenching the cycle further. The system learns to see Black, brown, and Muslim applicants as inherently problematic, not because they are, but because the system has been built to see them that way. AI-powered document analysis is often portrayed as a safeguard against fraud, but under a system predisposed to distrust, these tools can be calibrated for hypersensitivity, generating false positives that disproportionately affect applicants from the global south. A slight inconsistency in a birth certificate from Yemen or a passport issued during a civil war in Sudan is treated as evidence of deception. Applicants are assumed guilty, not because their documents are objectively fraudulent, but because the AI system has been trained to doubt documents from unstable countries. This is another form of reversion. Documents from Western nations glide through the system, while those from conflict zones are met with suspicion by default. Human officers, increasingly deferring to AI, become reluctant to override these flags for fear of being seen as soft on fraud. The AI's authority becomes final, leaving applicants with no path to explain their circumstances. The result is not the detection of fraud, but the exclusion of those who need protection most, refugees fleeing precisely the kinds of state collapse that make perfect documentation impossible. AI decision systems are often described as neutral evaluators, but ambiguity is not neutral under a system designed to deter. When faced with uncertainty, an incomplete form, a missing date, the algorithm defaults to denial. This is not an error. It is the system working as intended. In a political context where reducing immigration is the goal, ambiguity becomes a tool for rejection. This is the logic of retrospective exclusion. Uncertainty triggers denial, and minor mistakes block access to further review. Applicants often don't know what went wrong. The system's reasoning is opaque, and appeals require legal and technical expertise few migrants can afford. The process itself becomes the punishment. Automation here is not designed to find the truth. It is designed to say no as quickly and as often as possible. AI-driven data integration systems connect immigration records with law enforcement, employment, and public services. While framed as efficiency, these tools create a pervasive surveillance net that turns everyday activities into potential grounds for deportation. Undocumented migrants or those with pending applications begin to withdraw from society, avoiding hospitals, schools, and even legal aid out of fear that any data trail could trigger detention. This is the pattern of divergence into self-exclusion. Migrants disconnect from public life to avoid being seen. The system achieves its goal not by deporting everyone, but by making the process so dangerous that people disappear voluntarily. This form of technological deterrence is often invisible, but its effects are profound. Communities fragment, and people forgo essential services. The system succeeds in reducing immigration not through visible enforcement, but through quiet, pervasive fear. When these individual components, triage, profiling, document verification, automated denial, and surveillance, are combined, they form a closed system designed to eliminate human discretion. This is the ultimate bottleneck system. Errors, complexity, and ambiguity all lead to rejection. Human officers, once the last safeguard for compassion and context, are reduced to rubber-stamping AI decisions. Discretion becomes a risk. Saying yes becomes dangerous. This is the endgame of disassociation. The applicant is cut off from the process entirely. They cannot explain. They cannot appeal. They cannot even understand why they were denied. The system becomes a black box, and exclusion becomes the default state. The danger of AI in immigration is not that it will make individual mistakes. It is that it will encode exclusion into the very logic of the system. Under a hostile administration, AI is not a tool for efficiency, but a tool for erasure. The system will appear neutral, even as it becomes harder to challenge. Efficiency will mask cruelty. Precision will mask bias. Silence will mask suffering. Resisting this future requires more than reforming algorithms. It demands defending the role of human judgment, narrative, and context. Complexity must trigger review, not rejection. Ambiguity must prompt inquiry, not denial. And technology must serve fairness, not finality. Without these safeguards, AI will not just harden the system, it will render it invisible. The ultimate goal of a hostile immigration system is not to deport everyone. It is to make people disappear without a trace. AI makes that goal possible. Our task is to ensure that it never becomes reality.